August 23, 1942. Stalingrad, Soviet Union. A city of 400,000 people going about their lives. A German Luftwaffe pilot looked down at the city below. He received his orders: flatten it. What followed was one of the most intense aerial bombardments in history. Over 1,000 bombers turned Stalingrad into an inferno. 40,000 civilians died in a single day. The Volga River ran red with blood and oil. But this wasn't the battle. This was just the opening act. For the next 5 months, forces would fight over every room. German and Soviet forces would fight over every building, every room, every staircase in the ruined city. The average Soviet soldier who arrived at Stalingrad survived 24 hours. Some units were annihilated within minutes. German soldiers froze to death. By the time it ended in February 1943, over 1 million people were dead. An entire German army had been destroyed. The city was a graveyard of rubble and frozen corpses. Stalingrad wasn't just a battle. It was an apocalypse, urban warfare at its most brutal. A meat grinder where tactics were replaced by raw survival, where strategy meant fighting for a single ruined building for weeks, where neither side could retreat and neither side could win. This is the story of the turning point of World War II, the battle where Nazi Germany's aura of invincibility died, in the ruins of a Soviet city. And it started because of one man's obsession. To understand Stalingrad, you need to understand why Hitler wanted it. By summer 1942, Nazi Germany had been fighting in the Soviet Union for over a year. Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's invasion, had initially seemed unstoppable. German forces advanced hundreds of miles, captured millions of Soviet soldiers, and came within sight of Moscow. But then winter arrived. The Wehrmacht, unprepared for Russian cold, stalled. Soviet forces counterattacked. By spring 1942, the invasion had become a grinding war of attrition. Hitler needed a new strategy. He couldn't take Moscow, too well defended, so he turned south. The Caucasus region, oil fields, grain production, industrial centers. If Germany could capture the south, they'd cripple the Soviet economy and fuel their own war machine. The plan was called Case Blue, Fall Blau. German forces would drive southeast, capture the oil fields at Baku, and secure the Caucasus. But there was a problem: Stalingrad. The city sat on the western bank of the Volga River, a crucial transportation route. Soviet supplies flowed through Stalingrad to the southern front. If the Germans controlled it, they could cut Soviet supply lines and protect their own advance into the Caucasus. Militarily, Stalingrad made sense as a secondary objective. Take it, secure the flank, move on. But for Hitler, Stalingrad became personal. The city was named after Joseph Stalin. It was a propaganda symbol Soviet industrial might made manifest. And Hitler, obsessed with humiliating Stalin, decided Stalingrad had to be destroyed. He split his forces. Half would continue toward the oil fields. Half, the Sixth Army, under General Friedrich Paulus, would take Stalingrad. This decision violated basic military strategy. Never divide your forces before a major objective, but Hitler insisted. And on August 23, 1942, the Luftwaffe began bombing. What Hitler didn't know was that by making Stalingrad a symbol, he'd forced Stalin to make it one too. The Soviet leader ordered, not one step back. Stalingrad would be defended to the last man. And if the Germans wanted it, they'd have to take it building by building. After the initial bombing, German ground forces entered Stalingrad expecting a quick victory. The Sixth Army was one of Germany's best, battle-hardened veterans who'd conquered Poland, France, and much of Russia. They had superior tanks, better training, and overwhelming firepower. Against them, the Soviets had ruins. The bombing had turned Stalingrad into a landscape of shattered buildings, rubble-choked streets, and collapsed factories. Normal military tactics, tank columns, artillery support, coordinated advances were useless here. This was urban warfare, close quarters, room-to-room fighting, and it negated every German advantage. Soviet forces, led by General Vasily Chuikov, developed a brutal defensive strategy: hug the enemy. Stay so close to German positions that the Luftwaffe couldn't bomb without hitting their own troops. Turn every building into a fortress, force the Germans to fight for every meter. The fighting became apocalyptic. Battles were fought in factories where machinery was still running. Soldiers fought in sewers, staircases, and apartment rooms. Units became separated. Officers died within hours. Tactics dissolved into survival. Soviet reinforcements crossed the Volga under constant fire. The river became a graveyard. Boats sank. Bodies floated downstream. Those who made it across knew they probably wouldn't return. The average lifespan of a Soviet soldier at Stalingrad was 24 hours. Some units were wiped out within an hour of arrival. But they kept coming. Every night more died. But they held. And the Germans, expecting quick victory, found themselves trapped in an endless nightmare. One building became legendary: Pavlov's house, a 4-story apartment building in central Stalingrad. Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and a platoon of Soviet soldiers occupied it in late September 1942. The Germans needed it. It had a clear line of sight to key crossing points on the Volga. If they controlled it, they could devastate Soviet reinforcements. So they attacked, again and again and again. For 58 days, Pavlov's tiny garrison, never more than 30 men, held the building against constant German assault. They fortified the basement, created firing positions in every window, laid minefields in the surrounding streets. The Germans threw everything at them: artillery barrages, tank assaults, flamethrowers, aerial bombardment. The building was reduced to rubble, but Pavlov's men stayed. They survived by being supplied at night through the sewers. Ammunition, food, and reinforcements came through underground tunnels while Germans controlled the streets above. Legend says more Germans died trying to take Pavlov's house than died taking Paris. That's probably an exaggeration, but it captures the insanity of Stalingrad. A single apartment building defended more stubbornly than entire cities elsewhere. And Pavlov's house was just one building: the grain elevator, the Red October factory, Mamayev Kurgan, a hill that changed hands 8 times in a single day. Every location in Stalingrad became a miniature war unto itself. The Germans had a name for fighting in Stalingrad: Rattenkrieg, Rat War. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. This was something primordial, desperate, savage. Soldiers fought with knives, shovels, sharpened spades, anything that worked in close quarters. Snipers dueled for days. One German officer wrote, "We have fought for 15 days for a single house. The front is a corridor between burned-out rooms. We bombard each other with grenades in the middle of explosions, clouds of dust and smoke." Another wrote, "Stalingrad is no longer a town. By day it is an enormous cloud of burning, blinding smoke. When night arrives, the dogs plunge into the Volga and swim desperately to gain the other bank. Animals flee this hell. The hardest stones cannot bear it for long. Only men endure." But it wasn't just the fighting that killed them. It was the environment. As summer turned to autumn and autumn to winter, temperatures plummeted. By November, it was minus 20 degrees Celsius. By January, minus 40. German soldiers, still wearing summer uniforms because Hitler had expected the war to be over by winter, froze to death in their positions. Rifles jammed from the cold. Engines wouldn't start. Wounded men died of hypothermia before they could be evacuated. Soviet soldiers suffered too, but they were used to Russian winters. They wore felt boots, winter coats, white camouflage. They knew how to survive. And as the Germans weakened, the Soviets prepared their counterstroke. While the Sixth Army bled itself to death in Stalingrad, Soviet commanders were planning something Hitler never anticipated: Operation Uranus, a massive encirclement. The German Sixth Army was concentrated in Stalingrad, but their flanks, stretching hundreds of miles, were defended by Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian troops, forces with inferior equipment and low morale. Soviet commanders identified the weakness, and on November 19, 1942, they struck. Over 1 million Soviet troops and 1,000 tanks attacked the flanks simultaneously. The Romanian positions collapsed almost immediately. Soviet armored units punched through, driving deep behind German lines, cutting off any hope of retreat. 4 days later, on November 23rd, Soviet forces met at Kalash, west of Stalingrad. The trap was sprung. The Sixth Army, over 250,000 men, was surrounded. The tide of the war had officially turned. Hitler faced a choice: order a breakout immediately or hold Stalingrad and wait for relief. His generals begged him to order a retreat. The Sixth Army could still fight its way out, but Hitler refused. "The army will hold its positions," he ordered. "Supply by air will be arranged." It was a death sentence. The Luftwaffe promised to supply the surrounded army by air, 750 tons of supplies daily. They never came close. Most days they delivered less than 100 tons. Planes were shot down. Weather grounded flights. The trapped soldiers began to starve, and the Soviets tightened the noose. Inside the Stalingrad pocket, conditions became unbearable. Rations were cut, then cut again. Soldiers ate their horses, then their leather belts, then nothing. The wounded lay in frozen cellars without medical supplies. Frostbite and gangrene were epidemic. Typhus spread. Men died of starvation, disease, cold, and despair. By January 1943, the Sixth Army was a ghost of itself. Soldiers were too weak to fight effectively. Units ceased to exist as organized forces. Some men surrendered individually, too exhausted to continue. Hitler promoted General Paulus to Field Marshal, a symbolic gesture. No German field marshal had ever surrendered in the field. The message was clear: fight to the death. On January 31st, 1943, Paulus surrendered anyway. Not the whole army. Some units fought on for another 2 days. But the man Hitler had promoted hours earlier chose survival over glory. 91,000 German soldiers went into Soviet captivity. Starving, diseased, broken men who'd endured 5 months of hell. Only 6,000 would ever see Germany again. The rest died in Soviet prison camps, from disease, starvation, and exhaustion. The men who survived Stalingrad's battle died in its aftermath. So what did Stalingrad cost? The exact numbers are debated, but conservative estimates suggest Axis forces, 800,000 casualties, dead, wounded, captured. The entire Sixth Army destroyed. Significant Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian losses. Soviet forces, 1.1 million casualties, over 400,000 dead. Countless civilians killed in the bombing and fighting. Total, nearly 2 million casualties in 5 months for one city. To put that in perspective, that's more casualties than the United States suffered in all of World War II. In 5 months, in one location, the city itself ceased to exist. 99% of buildings were destroyed or damaged. The population, 400,000 in August, was reduced to a few thousand survivors hiding in the ruins. Stalingrad wasn't a battle, it was annihilation, but the strategic consequences were even greater. Stalingrad destroyed more than an army. It destroyed a myth. For 3 years, the Wehrmacht had been unstoppable. France fell in 6 weeks, Poland in 1 month, Yugoslavia in 11 days. German forces seemed invincible. Stalingrad ended that perception. Nazi Germany had thrown everything at Stalingrad. Its best army, unlimited resources, the Führer's personal obsession, and lost completely. Not a tactical withdrawal, not a strategic repositioning, total annihilation. The psychological impact was devastating. German soldiers on other fronts heard what happened and wondered, if the Sixth Army could be destroyed, could they be next? Allied forces realized Germany could be beaten. Soviet forces gained confidence. They'd stopped the Wehrmacht at Moscow, but at Stalingrad, they destroyed it. Strategically, Stalingrad crippled Germany's southern offensive. Without the Sixth Army, they couldn't hold the Caucasus. They had to withdraw, abandoning the oil fields they'd fought to capture. More broadly, Stalingrad marked the moment Germany shifted from offense to defense. After Stalingrad, the Wehrmacht would never again mount a major successful offensive in the east. From February 1943 onward, it was retreat, defensive battles, and slow collapse. The war would continue for over 2 years. Millions more would die, but Stalingrad was the turning point, the moment Germany's defeat became inevitable. Today, the city is called Volgograd. In 1961, Khrushchev removed Stalin's name from maps. But during World War II, it was Stalingrad, and that name became synonymous with something beyond ordinary warfare. Stalingrad represents the absolute extreme of human conflict. Industrial age weaponry meets primordial savagery. Modern armies reduced to men fighting with shovels in frozen ruins. An entire city turned into a killing field where the usual rules, strategy, logistics, even basic humanity didn't apply. Historians still debate, was Stalingrad necessary? Could the Soviets have stopped Germany elsewhere? Could the Sixth Army have broken out? Maybe, but Hitler made it symbolic. Stalin accepted the challenge. And once both dictators staked their prestige on the city, retreat became impossible. Millions died because two tyrants couldn't afford to lose a symbolic victory. The ruins of Stalingrad are rebuilt now. Mamayev Kurgan, where soldiers fought for every meter, is crowned with a massive memorial. The motherland calls, a statue of a woman holding a sword to the sky. But beneath the city, beneath the monuments and the rebuilt streets, the ground is still full of bones. Soldiers who died for a city that became a graveyard. Men who froze, starved, or were shot fighting for ruins that weren't worth their lives. Stalingrad wasn't won or lost. It was survived, barely. And the lesson it taught, that Nazi Germany could be beaten, that the Wehrmacht could bleed, that invincibility was an illusion. That lesson cost 1 million lives. Was it worth it? History says yes. The survivors might disagree. If this journey into one of history's most brutal battles showed you that war isn't glorious, it's hell made manifest, then you're starting to understand what Stalingrad really meant. Here at Imperial Echoes, we don't glorify war. We examine it. The strategies, the mistakes, the human cost, and the moments that changed everything. From ancient sieges to modern battles, we explore warfare as it actually was, not how we wish it had been. Hit subscribe for more deep dives. We've got videos coming on D-Day, the Battle of Kursk, and the Pacific, where men fought and died for patches of jungle and coral. Drop a comment. Was Stalingrad the real turning point, or was Germany already doomed? What battle deserves more attention? Thanks for watching. History remembers the battles. We remember what they cost.